Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'd like to acknowledge that we respectfully acknowledge the land on which we gather and work is on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of the land. I would also like to acknowledge that we have a full house today, both in the audience and online. Being heard today, we have a full council in spite of the fact there's some empty chairs here. We have Mayor Minions, Councillor Hazlitt and Councillor Blacklock coming to us via Zoom from other parts of the country today. So we have a very full meeting today. We have 3 delegations, and it's really great to see the audience here today. But I'd just like to remind you that we need to be quiet during the presentations and while the meeting is going on. It is streamed online, so people can access it that way. And for people that would like to have a greater participation, there will be a public hearing July 10th. So with that, I would like to get the meeting started with the adoption of the agenda. Can I moved and second? All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. And we're going to begin with our delegations. The first delegation is not presenting tonight, so we're going to move on to Jenny Steele. So we'd like to welcome Jenny Steele up to the podium from the Comox Golf Course.
Am I live now? Yeah. Okay, great. This is my clicker. Okay, great. I'll just skip right through. Okay. Okay, other way. Okay, right. I'm here today actually to ask your support in writing for a BC Gaming Grant capital submission that we're putting in at the golf club. We thought we'd give you a quick update too on how we're doing and some of the challenges and share with you our strategic directions. Last year, as you know, we've been here before, was a difficult financial year for us. We had a tough time. If I put my glasses on to read, I'd probably do better. Yeah, this is the lingering results of COVID, inflation, and the state of the labor market that have not been good on our finances at the golf course. We made it through thanks to our members. We sold 10 of our members bought 5-year memberships, which was great, and 8, still 2 left for sale, bought 10-year memberships. The 5-year sales allow us to pay off our CEBA loan that had been hanging over us from COVID days and let us reap the $20,000 federal grant. We also funded some capital acquisitions that we needed. But the big thing is funds for the 10-year membership that we got are going to be used as a matching fund for a capital gaming grant for upgrade, to begin the upgrade of our irrigation system. We did go through some organizational changes that I think are paying off. We hired a consultant to work on the irrigation system renewal project. As a result, that work's going to be phased in. Assuming we are successful with the grant, we should be able to start in phase 1, renewal of the central pump house, plus new irrigation on 2 holes in 2025. The cost for all that is around $250,000. So we're hoping we can get half of it out of the province. We also changed our constitution last year and some of our bylaws, and we're shifting away from being so member focused to being more a sport development facility and trying to promote the sport of golf. Keep forgetting to do this. Okay, I know it's on your radar. Looking at the golf course, it's more a multifunctional space. Different activities in the same complex. However, such facilities are usually on large courses, very large courses, where they can mix things like tennis with golf or swimming or whatever. We're not like that. We're only 46.5 acres. and we're packed in tight from wall to wall with the golf course. So there's no real opportunity to put anything else in. We did try, as you know, last year, disc golf, but at the end of the day, we'd be losing money on it. But we'd also, the infrastructure that we'd have had to put in would have interfered with play. They wanted, at the end of the day, 36 tee pads, which in a golf course outside size would really have interfered with play. And we'd have had to wrap a lot of trees just to protect them from the damage. So that one didn't work out. As you know, we have been part of your downtown business revitalization project. And we were a little surprised that the consultant's report had included the golf course in two of the big moves. We took a quick look at the feasibility of them both. The loop trail inside the golf course is not feasible unless a fence is installed to protect pedestrian traffic from golf. Golf balls fly at more than 120 miles per hour. Pedestrians and golf do not mix. We'd never get insurance for an unprotected trail. As you can see on the map on the left, this is the layout of the golf course. The red circles are areas where there's just not enough room to put a trail between tees and greens and the fence. So the 4 areas there, we'd have to move greens, tees, and that costs a lot of money. The blue circles would need to put a bridge because there's a stream there. The little black circle at the bottom is where we have a bunch of sheds. And that would have to move too. To put a trail inside the golf course also would require that we cut down 81 mature trees. We conclude that this plan would cost you guys lots of money and likely because of hole foreshortening, because some of those holes would have to be foreshortened to move the tees and the greens, we'd probably lose a lot of members and players. The second big move that was proposed was to extend Buena Vista through the lower part of the golf course and put in a new public park and some parking. Again, that would require relocation of 1 green and 2 tee boxes, lots of some mature trees. By doing that, you'd foreshorten the course and make it an executive length course with a loss of playing challenge. Many members, we believe, would leave. I know I would if it was executive length. And we'd lose our leagues, events into clubs. It would turn into a different flavor of golf course. And also, again, a reminder, it would not be in conformance with Mr. Filberg's bequest and the restrictive covenants on title. So what are our strategic direction? Basically, we're going to try and keep the golf course, but try and get more people onto the golf course. Right now, it's used by over 1,000 residents, 238 members this year, and 925 people who are registered on our tee time system, kind of pay-as-you-go people. Again, a reminder, golf is the second most reported sport played in Canada, and it has huge health benefits for people of all ages. The report there actually is an interesting read. It shows on average golfers live 5 years longer than non-golfers. And it helps combat lots of disease because people of my age can get out there and keep moving. We're trying to put in place again through a community gaming grant, an outreach program to increase the participation. So we're going to reach out directly into schools, into seniors organizations, underprivileged organizations, people like L'Arche, looking for people, up to 200 people who have never played golf before and who would like to try. So basically, we've asked for funding for a part-time outreach coordinator to pay for lessons, three lessons, half-hour lessons for each participant, 3 rounds of golf for each participant, et cetera, trying to pull people into the sport and give people an opportunity. So again, we've taken the funding for that under the BC Community Gaming Grant that went in 2 weeks ago. If we get it, it'll be great. We're also trying to increase the ecological value of the golf course to the community. So we're looking to improve the biodiversity by installing bat boxes, birds, consulting with various organizations to see what we could do to encourage more birds and bees and whatever to come. We're going to plant more trees so it becomes a bigger urban carbon sink. And again, we've asked for funding to get rid of the invasive species. We have a lot of Daphne laurel on the property and it's hard to get rid of. It's toxic. It needs PPE in order to remove it. So we've asked for some funding to support that. Lastly, we have explored alternate uses. So we've looked at the golf course and said, well, are the bits where people don't play? And can we do something with those? So we've identified 3 bits. There's an area bordering Stewart Street on number 1. It's about an acre, accessible from Stewart Street. So potential use of that might be a community garden. Have people downtown grow their own veggies or whatever. There's a wooded area bordering Church Street up on the northwest side. Maybe a contemplation garden. Install some benches and make it an area for people to use. Then there's the area to the right of number 8 tee box. It's about two city lots big, right, and it's right behind what was the old Lawn Hotel parking lot. It doesn't come into play at all. So that's another area that could be used potentially, and it's right downtown. So that's our plan. So we're looking today for a letter of support from you for our irrigation renewal project submission to the community, to the Capital Gaming grant program. It's a $5 million provincial pot, and it's a competitive pot. We'd be competing against others in the province for that money. So we need all the help we can get. A letter of support from the community through the council, I think would really, really help. And so that's what we're asking for you to do today. We look forward to any further discussions on some of the ideas we've put out here, and over to you for questions. And I got through in 10 minutes, yay.
Thank you, Jenny. I forgot to remind everybody that it's 10 minutes for the presentation. You were right on, so thank you very much. I'll open it to questions in a moment, but before we do, do you have a timeline?
The grant has got to be in by August 15th, and those are like hard deadlines for the province. Like we can't be longer than that. So
okay, because normally we don't deal with this kind of thing at the same meeting, but
no,
we'll have an opportunity before then to
yeah, if you could. I mean, if we could get something from you by 1st of August, that'd be great.
Thank you. Okay, so questions. Councillor Kerr.
Hi, Jenny. Thanks so much for coming tonight. And again, just as a disclaimer, and should just mention my son's a junior member at the golf course, and I also want to congratulate you and the team for hosting the recent junior golf tournament and the BC Summer Games Championships, or the qualifier, sorry, for the champs. It was a great event, so thanks for doing that. Yeah, my question was going to be about alternate uses, and I really wanted to just thank you for highlighting those items on that one slide 7, that had some of the areas, little pockets.
Yeah,
I love the idea of a community garden. That's really nice. Be a great addition to downtown. And my question was going to be about involving more juniors, because as you know, this golf course is perfect for juniors. It's right length. It's fun. There's fun holes, and so just if you could talk more about what your plan is, like involving the schools and giving lessons.
Basically, it would be this part-time board. The vision is to go out into the schools and talk to the principals, talk to whomever in the schools, and say, okay, we're looking for kids of all ages who are interested, but who have never played before and would like the opportunity to play. And we think we'll get a lot of uptake in that. In fact, we think we get so much uptake. I think part of the submission that we put in is for like 19 sets of golf clubs, for kids this big to kids this big. So we do expect that there would be quite a lot of juniors coming out of the schools into this outreach program. Again, you know, we've budgeted for like 200. Is that too much? Is that not enough? We really don't know till we get there. So does that answer your question?
Thank you, Jenny. I have Director or Councillor Hazlitt online.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jenny. Couple of questions I've got here. A couple of years ago, Crown Isle had done some work with Simon Fraser University to get a few of their golf program athletes to come work in the community, and they started providing a lot of lessons to young kids at the park. And I thought it was a really great operation that they had planned. I was wondering if you'd had any conversations with Crown Isle or any of the schools either on the island or on the lower mainland or anywhere really about any successes or obstacles that could come up with getting some coaching in or anything through the community outreach. And then
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, we haven't, as far as I know. I'm not in charge of the juniors program, so I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. I don't think we've ever consulted with Simon Fraser University. We have a part-time or a non-resident pro, Kyle, who's been coming in working with all the kids, and the kids really seem to, as far as I can tell, really love Kyle. So depending on the demand, we could go further afield looking for coaches and people to help.
Excellent. And then the second part is with respect to the letter of support. I'm in favor of it. I think what you guys offer there is quite great. But also if you've reached out to the regional district as well, because there's quite a few golfers from Area B that.
Well, that's a good idea. I'll go put myself on there. But yeah, that's a great idea. I can maybe, I don't know if I've got time to go on their agenda or just write them a letter. Or for those of you who sit on the regional district board, maybe you could support us.
And that's all I've got.
Okay, and we have a question from Councillor Mayer.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the presentation. And I'm also quite excited about your slide 7 and about you expanding into supporting youth, and especially about the increasing the ecological value on the golf course. That's very exciting. And addressing invasives is great, and introducing native species actually might be another opportunity. I also wonder, with the water, are you talking, and I'm sorry if you talked about this and I missed it, but I'm just wondering if you're talking about reducing water use.
At this point, I must admit, we have not had the consultant report too much. Yeah, we have a committee in charge of the project, and certainly, as far as I can tell, there may be a water reduction, but at this point, and where we're at, we haven't quantified that yet. If you remember, we are on our own well. That doesn't prevent, aquifer drain, but certainly we'd be looking at trying to do that. And I think probably with the technology today, rather than the 50-year-old technology we've got now, I would hope that there is some improvement. But I'm sorry, I can't answer, with specific numbers today. But I'd be happy to share that once we've figured them.
Yeah, it'd be great to hear about kind of where you land and what you learn about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things with the irrigation is, as climate change happens, like we're worried about the stress on the trees. We have 800 trees on that golf course, and it would be a shame to lose them because of drought or whatever, and lose that carbon sink in the urban core.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe we can come back and tell you some more about that.
Great, thank you.
I don't see any more questions at this point. So thank you, Jenny, for your presentation. And I know we will consider your request before August 1st.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thanks, Maureen.
thanks. And I'd like to call up the next presentation from Trevor Dickey from Broad Street Properties. Welcome, Trevor.
Thank you. There we
There
go.
we go.
I'm live. Thank you, Councillor Swift, the Chair, members of council. My name is Trevor Dickey. I'm the Vice President of Real Estate Development with Broad Street Properties, based just up the road in Campbell River. We've been in business for over 25 years and principally develop and build purpose-built rental. We own 16,000 units from Vancouver Island to Ottawa. We build up to 1,500 a year. So we're hard at work in all corners of the of Canada trying to solve the housing crisis. And Comox is certainly high on that list. I'm here principally today just to talk about just trying to get some clarity on a pathway over a parcel of land. You can see it's on the left-hand side. It's delineated there. It's a 12-acre parcel. It's been in the official community plan designated land use of multifamily development for the past 12 years. It's we have an active rezoning application in. Our application matches exactly the OCP standards. Again, that's been in place for 12 years. So certainly no surprise to anyone about the development that's coming on here. It's been clearly identified as such. I think as we get down the path, just to detail some of the finer points, we were looking to have some clarity in terms of the pathway connection. Just one thing to note here, one of the pieces that we are providing in our development is a 10-meter wide pathway adjacent to Hector Road that will continue on the property adjacent to the east that you'll hear from the delegation following me. We looked at a number of pathway options through the site and then looked at it on a holistic basis in terms of what the function of this path would be. So if you can imagine, traveling through the site to go from the southwest corner, so lower left, to the upper right, really to have a pathway through here, it doesn't create a missing link. You can travel along Aspen, there'll be a sidewalk there, and then of course you're on the Hector Greenway, going from the southwest corner to the northeast corner. I'd have to go back to my grade 8 math and the Pythagorean theorem, but it's probably like a similar distance. So in that case, it doesn't really establish a missing link. We had discussed with administration a number of different opportunities and a number of different alignments for the path. Some are shown in green and blue and red, and then the red. In terms of urban design principle, which I've been at for 30 some years, to have a pathway on the red alignment for our piece, if there is indeed a required pathway, that's the best alignment. It has eyes on the street. It's visible from the residents. But in this case, I think our position is, and again, it's to be decided on a holistic basis, but really the pathway doesn't solve any missing link. It would be principally for the internal use of the residents on our site and on the site to the east. If there is a need for a pathway, I think the structure that would work in terms of accommodating the path would be a statutory right-of-way, which would mean that we would maintain ownership of the path. We would do all the landscaping maintenance. We would do any other repairs, maintenance on the path, but a path would be open for use of anybody in the future. Please. It's not in the budget. So from that perspective, I think there was some discussion that possibly to accommodate this, there would be a need for a 10-meter wide dedicated right-of-way dedicated to city, and then I'll have a 5-meter buffer on that. This serves the same purpose. I think even to have it as a statutory right-of-way would be less intrusive on the area, probably maintain some more of the natural area. Again, if there's no path, we have paths interior to the site. So I suppose if there is decided there is a need for the path, certainly our preference, and I think, is the statutory right-of-way, which functions exactly the same. There's no need for a land dedication. It creates side yard setbacks. It creates interior setbacks. We would probably squeeze down. It would limit the site. And again, it doesn't accomplish anything. It just puts additional capital burden on the city for ongoing maintenance, and the function is the same. So short and sweet. That's I know we're allowed 10 minutes, and I hope you keep firm to that on here for everyone. So I've got 5 in the bank. So with that, I'll pass it off back to you, Chair, if there's any questions from you or other members of council.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Oh, I see one from Councillor Haas online.
Thank you very much. In the event that a standard right of way was to be used, what would the setback for the buildings be off of that 10 meters?
Okay, and I'm going to, I know we like looking at you, but I don't know if I can get back to the other picture here. Is there a chance, I don't know who's the wizard is, the vase is somewhere behind the curtain here. I'm just gonna bring up the slides. And I did have other slides here. I should have jumped to the next one. And if I got the clicker right. Okay, so this is the what it would look like if you added a 10-meter dedication and a 5-meter setback. And this is what it would look like if with just the statutory right of way. Of course, the path would be the standard, typical standard, and you'd have your setbacks. Again, that's what the difference would look like. So this would actually, it creates when you put a legally defined and subdivided parcel out of the map, it creates a side yard and you have a setback. So it basically would reduce the rental units quite significantly.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe Mayor Minions had a question.
Yeah, thanks. Just a clarification on that map there between the different color delineations between the red, the green, and the blue paths. I guess those were kind of all different options that were potentially discussed. Was the red kind of the path that you were looking at for a right of way that would kind of have the least impact on rentals? Or can you just clarify the difference between kind of those three options, Trevor? Between the red, the green, and the blue pathways? I just wasn't clear.
That sort of goes back, and I think that sort of decision has been established that this was early on. This in terms of the very first. Let me see if I'm a rookie here on the switch. Just in terms of good planning principles, the solid red is the preferable, and it's actually it has the most utility for the residents. If you put the blue in, it's going to be basically in the backyard of the residents to the south. The green is the same, and it's going to be, you're going to have to remove a whole bunch of trees in there. I mean, that's an area that we've actually pushed the buildings up a bit more to establish a buffer and leave a natural buffer in there. So that's why, we went with the red path. It has a better utility in terms of picking up the most number of residents. And then, being from a standard, just the first principle of urban design, that's where you put a path in a community. It has way less impact and intrusion on the natural environment. And it's in a better location just from an urban design perspective.
Okay, and just a quick follow-up confirmation. So all of the townhouses and apartment units you're looking to build, you're doing 100% rental on that site?
No, sorry. The townhomes to the south would be a sale product, and then the north would be apartment rental.
Okay, so the apartments are all rentals, and the townhouses are proposed sale. Okay,
correct.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
And Councillor Kerr.
Just trying to get the nomenclature right. So with the statutory right of way, would that cause you any loss of units in your current design?
Not in our current design, no. We actually have it, like, it doesn't create a property line. It stays within the property. It's just a surveyed right of way that sits on title, but it doesn't create a separate parcel. So there's no new property line and no new setback.
Perfect, thank you.
Are there any further questions?
I have one.
Oh, I see the Councillor Haslund.
Thanks. And then in the event that a standard right of way was used versus kind of a larger trail, is that going to be kind of sitting on the inside of people's backyards? Or I can see the buildings to the south here. It looks like their backyards are right there. Whereas the buildings to the north, would that be rear entrance to the residences, or what? How does that pathway contribute to those?
So on the north side, on the rental units, apartment rental units, there's actually walkouts. So there's actually, in our design, we actually have units that have patios that walk out onto would walk out onto the trail. And then on the townhomes, it's a bit of a unique design. So it's the same as the townhome style that would be fronting Aspen Road. So there's sort of like two front doors. So the fronting the pathway, that would be like a front door, and there'd be like a small yard in the front. So it would look like the front door of a house. So basically, you front on, it's a pretty, it'd be like you'd be fronting on your front yard onto a sidewalk. It's not a backyard condition on the townhomes.
Okay, but there is a bit of a space there in the event that the right of way was used, there's a bit of a space there. So if a path's going through, it's not like if you're sitting in your back, yard, quote unquote, you're not having people kind of walking right up on you or anything like that.
There's a decent amount of setback there. There's at least 5 meters, probably up to between 5 and 8 meters. It'd be the same condition as if it's sort of a townhome design where you have a front porch, and then you front onto, whether it's a sidewalk or a path. It would basically be the same condition if you're on, say, Aspen fronting onto a sidewalk, or here fronting onto a path. It's a pretty sort of standard urban design condition where you front onto a sidewalk. In this case, it's a path.
Perfect, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, Councillor Grant.
Wanted to go. So on the agenda tonight, we have High Street Ventures. It's actually what we're dealing with. And you're Broad Street, so you neighbor with them.
Yep.
So this pathway, if we don't get, if for some reason High Street didn't want to deal with this, then there would be really very little need for you to do.
Yeah, and that's where it's a little tricky. Like, again, if it's decided on a grand basis, and really, like I said before, from a functional perspective, from a broader community in terms of travel from point A, which is the southwest corner, to point B, which is the northeast corner, there's really no need or utility for a pathway that winds interior to the site. You have access along Aspen, and then you're on the Hector Greenway. And from a pure mathematical perspective, you could measure it, but it's, I'm guessing that it's essentially exactly the same distance. So if there was no pathway provided on the or required on the High Street site, again, the pathway is principally for the residents. There would really be no need or no rationale to put a path to the property line that just dead ended and didn't go anywhere. So yeah, if it's decided that or determined that that the exterior pathway that we're dedicating land and building and constructing and paying money for is sufficient, then we would look at not having a secondary pathway to serve the same purpose.
Okay. Yeah, it's a bit confusing just because we've got your names are pretty much the same, and you've got two different developments in the same area. And so it gets a little bit confusing, as well as the fact that I think the High Street one probably isn't even going to be looked at being built for 6 to 10 years. So it's kind of hard for us to figure out how trails should fit in there when we don't really know what we're getting, right?
Yeah, and I say it is like on a global basis, on a larger basis, it is a redundant connection. It's not needed. I think on an immediate basis, like Aspen will be built, Hector Road Greenway will be built. It'll be part of the development we do. And as they say, we've been in the OCP for 12 years. We're chomping the bit to get going. We have an active application in, and we're again with the Bill 44. It goes right to council. There's no public hearing because it's in the OCP and it's been in there for 12 years. We just want to get on with it. All this will be built. The pathways will be built on the exterior, and that would be sufficient. So again, there's really no strong rationale to build the pathway for a broader community connection perspective. There is going to be sufficient connections.
Okay, seeing no further questions. Thank you, Trevor, for your information, and we'll see where this ends up.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to call up Julie Mitch. Welcome, Julie.
Hi, thanks. So it's this bottom button, right? This is the one that. I can never figure it out, but. Thank you. So my name is Julie Miksch, and I have been a Hector Aspen local for over 20 years. I'm a registered biological technician with the College of Applied Biology. Today, my request to council is to recommend hiring a registered professional biologist, or an RP Bio for short, on staff or contract to work with the town's planning department and council. I'm sure I've become a familiar face to most of you, this being my 4th presentation to council since 2022. The frequency of my presentations definitely correlates with the increased speed and size of developments that are consuming the last of the undeveloped, not protected properties in the Comox Valley. It's not moving. Oh, there we go. Undeveloped properties are a hot commodity, and what would be considered to be poorly thought out. Oh, sorry, I'll start again. Undeveloped properties are a hot commodity in what many would consider to be a poorly thought out government initiative to build bigger, denser, faster. We'll deal with the fallout later. In the race to purchase properties, developers and the real estate agents are missing critical features that may in fact sterilize portions of their property, such as wetlands, sorry, it's not working. There we go. Such as wetlands, ditches that connect to fish habitat, and protected wildlife features such as nests, making portions of their properties unsuitable for development. Unfortunately, when this happens, the negotiations begin. Guidelines and recommendations to protect these features are often whittled down, and compromises are made under pressure. Without specialized expertise and strong factual evidence, the buffers and protocols needed to protect these features are often modified or minimized to the point of being ineffective, especially in the long term. For example, in the conclusion section of the memorandum report associated with a red listed wetland located at 2077 Hector Road, the environmental consultant recommended a 15-meter buffer around the red listed wetland. However, in the same report, the environmental consultant confirms that the BC Develop with Care guidelines recommends a 30-meter setback for wetlands in urban areas. This minimum 30-meter setback is then reaffirmed in a letter submitted by the Ministry of Water, Lands and Resource Stewardship on May 26, 2023, page 377 of this meeting's agenda, that states, given the rarity of this type of wetland at the provincial level, I would advise adhering to this guideline, referring to the 30-meter Develop with Care guidelines. The only rationale I can determine for the recommendation of 15-meter buffer is based on the riparian areas protection regulation, which does not apply to this scenario. In addition to being easily overlooked due to its tree composition, trembling aspen, Pacific crabapple, sluicide swamps are likely critically imperiled, as even minor changes to their hydrology will tip them either into a more terrestrial habitat or wetland habitat. This effect has been documented on the adjacent property to the west by Broad Street's consultant, who stated verbatim, "It is in our opinion that the smaller wetland is non-functioning due to the poor health of the trees within the wetland boundary, and the construction of Aspen Road adjacent to the wetland significantly altering the hydrology of the site. The BC CDC Conservation Status Report comments that this community requires strongly fluctuating water tables, and road construction is known to limit the lateral flow of groundwater, alter surface flow patterns, and cause drying of wetlands. Hard surfaces such as buildings, roads, parking spaces, underground parking, sidewalks, paved trails will dominate both High Street and Broad Street's developments. How much more evidence is needed to retain a wetland hydrologist to determine the buffers needed to protect these red listed wetlands if less than 30-meter buffers are recommended? An RP bio on staff would be effective in several ways. On undeveloped and partially developed lands, a staff biologist could request a preliminary ecological survey to determine if any potential sensitive ecosystems or features may be impacted and require further investigation on the property. If sensitive ecosystems and features exist, a staff biologist could request an environmental assessment be completed by a qualified environmental consultant, complete with recommendations and solutions to protect these features. The staff biologist would review all environmental assessments and provide suggestions and recommendations on improvements, additions, or further research needed to edit and/or strengthen the report. The RP bio would closely with the Town of Comox planners and council, would work closely with the Town of Comox planners and council when advice and recommendations were needed, attend council meetings to address relevant concerns, liaise with other biologists and engineers with pertinent experience, provide expertise and advise biological questions asked by the public and non-government organizations, and relay these concerns to planners, Town of Comox and council, and with the proponent, develop an environmental monitoring plan monitoring the environmental and wildlife impacts during and post-project development. I believe this position is now necessary in this new era of fast-tracking the development process. However, fast-tracking the development process should not come at a cost of negatively impacting the environment, committing offenses against the Wildlife Act, Water Sustainability Act, or recommendations made by the Ministry of Water, Lands, and Resource Stewardship. As well, it should not negatively impact or strain resource availability or services to the public in the area in which it's proposed. An RP bio and staff could potentially increase the efficiency of the Town of Comox to respond to environmental concerns in a proactive and professional way. I believe most environmental assessments should not be submitted as a final draft without a third-party review in which the reviewers ask questions or suggest further information of the consultant. Although registered professional biologists and foresters are held accountable by their organizations by the professional reliance model, if peers are not reviewing their work, the model is completely self-reliant, and this obviously can become a concern. Over the last 2 years, RP Bio Wayne, Matt Koski, and I have reviewed the environmental assessments for the Hector and Aspen Roads development properties as the reports became publicly available. We have spent many hours, all voluntary, to perform the job descriptions I just described. Ethically, we felt obligated knowing that the potential infractions to federal and provincial acts could occur on these sites without intervention. We hope to reduce our input if a designated and qualified RP bio is on staff. I've worked as a technician for over 23 years, contributing my field skills, writing skills, and knowledge to similar projects. I can definitely appreciate the difficulty, complexities, and pressures associated with completing environmental impact assessments. However, for projects of this magnitude with significant impacts and sensitive ecosystems at risk, a third-party reviewer is appropriate and will reduce public anxiety and skepticism. I think the ideal RP bio candidate would be someone who is no longer associated with a consulting firm or company, has experience with groups including First Nations, public and private sector, government, NGOs, conservation, residential, commercial, and industry, works well with and has a good rapport with First Nations, the Town of Comox and Council, and is unbiased and confident. So thank you so much for letting me be a delegate today. Sorry about all the mistakes. I couldn't deal with this clicker today, but if you have any questions for me, please feel free.
Thank you, Julie, and we won't hold our technical problems against you. So do we have any questions? Councillor Kern.
Thanks, Julie, so much for the presentation. Question for staff, just that this discussion topic will be on our next agenda. Just wondering if at that time, staff might be able to provide us with their thoughts on this suggestion of an RP bio, either on contract or on staff, and I'm just curious kind of what other communities do. How big of a community do you need to be in order to make this like a cost benefit in the pro category? And also just would it be warranted and advisable given the growth and development in our community right now? So just when we discuss it next week, or sorry, next council meeting, would staff be presenting some of their thoughts on this suggestion? Thanks.
Yeah, I can certainly provide thoughts on that at the next meeting or whenever council wishes to hear them.
Do we have any further questions? Oh, yes, sorry, Councillor Mayor.
Thanks for your presentation, Julie, and for all of your volunteer RP bioing as well. I'm wondering if you have approached the province at all about some of the challenges that you're seeing. This isn't the first time that I've heard about challenges with the way the professional certification is working, and I'm wondering if there's a leadership role for the province in that at all, from your perspective.
So you're talking about the provincial government, or are you talking about the organization of the RP?
I guess it would be a question about both, or yeah. Because part of what you're talking about, it sounds like has to do with the structure of the professional certification.
Oh, I think it's been an ongoing concern, both in the forestry industry and the professional industry. However, oftentimes we're able as biologists to review other people's work. I know that I've done a lot of these myself in my earlier years, and we never submitted a report, an environmental assessment, without it having draft on the bottom. And then our clients would look at that report and they'd be able to, you know, make comments to us or make suggestions, and as well provide it to others if they wanted to. So I think that was really my comment, is that rather than the reports that are coming in be finals, look at having someone review it before, so that we can see whether or not there's anything that we would further want to see researched.
Awesome. Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we have a question from Mayor Minions.
Thank you. And being cognizant that this is going to come back probably June 19th for discussion. Just over to staff, from what we have on the staff recommendations this evening for the High Street property, what would our kind of environmental bio discussions have been so far directly, like with the province or with the biologists from the developer? What is our kind of environmental bioassessment discussions been to date? If you can just give a really quick preview, and then maybe that will lead to this discussion at the next regular council meeting.
Yeah, thank you. So we would have referred the developments out to the provincial government. The province would have provided comments back, and we would have received the environmental report from the RP bios from the developers. The province would have had the opportunity to review those reports and provide comment back, which is what we've seen. I think one of the areas where we get into a bit of issues around here is guidelines versus legislation. I think that even when we were speaking with the provincial government, they were making it clear that the province of BC's guidelines were not adequate, and they were referring us to other jurisdiction guidelines that could be followed. But again, that's getting outside of the regulations and into the guidelines. I did want to mention one thing. So council, we can talk about the desire for a change in staff in the next meeting and into your next budget cycle. If the type of review that's being requested by the delegation or the reason to have that person on staff being requested by the delegation, for that sort of review and information to come back to council, it's something that you're going to need to direct sooner than the second reading and the scheduling of public hearing. Because once we've scheduled the public hearing, if you were to decide at that point to have an additional environmental assessment completed and come back, then we're going to need to schedule another public hearing. So if that's going to be something that's going to be asked for, it makes sense to do it sooner rather than later. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
Okay, thank you. And do we have any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Julie, for your presentation and your
Thank you.
passion for this project. And I'd like to call out Neil Bolton from High Street. Welcome, Neil.
Perfect. Okay, we're all set. Thank you, worship and members of council for the opportunity to appear as delegation today. My name is Neil Bolton. I'm with High Street Ventures, and we are the developer and applicant for this file. I'm here today to talk about the rezone and OCP amendment for 941 Aspen and 2077 Hector Road. We all know there's a housing shortage out there, and High Street can help fill that need. The decision today will be with council. Does Comox want multifamily housing? Perfect. Okay, got it figured out now. Before we get into the details of the project, I wanted to give you a quick overview of High Street. The image here is a picture of our Aspen View property, which during the approval process for those on council faced a lot of opposition. We think the project was a great success and houses hundreds of Comox residents. So again, successful project for us. Definitely a proud building. An important item to note here is we manage all our rental properties. We take a lot of pride in our buildings. We don't just create places to live, we create communities. We have on-site community leaders who do a great job managing and maintaining our communities out there. We build carbon free. So what does that mean? Carbon free, it means that we don't actually run gas to our buildings. We have fully electric buildings, so we've got a full solar array on the top, which typically covers the base building needs. Really cool to see. Obviously, I'd like to increase that as utility commissions reduce those standards. We completed our first BC Energy Step Code 4 building in 2020 in West Kelowna, and we haven't looked back since. That's what we do moving forward. By the end of 2024, we'll have 2,400 units built to this standard. We also provide double the standard new home warranty. So the new home warranty is 2, 5, and 10 years typically. We provide it for 10, 20 on our stuff. It just goes to show we stand by our product, and if it wasn't built right, we'll fix it. Just to give you a little rough timelines here on the project, September 2016, the subject properties were incorporated into the town of Comox, retaining the CVRD, OCP, and land use designations. High Street purchased the properties in July 2022 and continued working with planning staff to understand process and engineering requirements. Here we are in June of 2024 for the first and second reading of the rezone and OCP amendment. Needless to say, we've been at this a while and are anxious to move forward and bring much needed housing to the Comox area. This shows a few things we've done to advance our application with the town here. We've completed 3 traffic studies over the 12-month period, running multiple scenarios for the town's request. In summer of 2023, we completed remediation work on the Aspen West property based on the environmental reports. We spent over $230,000 to get D&D to update their height restrictions. And we've spent the last 10 months assisting the town in creating new apartment, townhome, and mixed-use zones. As you can see, we've invested a significant amount of time and effort getting to where we are today. Let's review the existing zoning and proposed zoning. So the existing zoning, it's obviously carried over some from CVRD. The new proposed zones will be moving towards the adjacent property. It would align with Broad Streets. So for the land use for the Aspen West and 2077 hectare piece, it would be updated to a residential low-rise apartment, townhome, and ground-oriented infill. And we'd be looking at updating the Aspen East piece to a mixed-use commercial residential. On Aspen West, we're requesting an RM 6.1 zone, which includes low-rise apartments. On the Aspen East, the C 7.1 zone, which would be a mixed-use zone, which includes commercial and low-rise apartments. And on the 2077 hectare piece, the RM 6.2 zone, which includes low-rise apartments and townhomes. Just looking quickly at the community benefits. I'll spell them out here. It's blocked by the image. That's all good. Economic benefits in the community. Once all phases are built out on our development, we're looking at, approximately $1 million in annual property tax revenue to the town. Roughly $8 million in development cost charges. Approximately $3 million in affordable housing contributions. And $100,000 playground contribution. These aren't small numbers. There will be numerous housing options, which will ultimately be market driven. The project will be multiple phases over 6 to 10 years. So we need to be nimble and have the ability to react to the market. We will have public infrastructure upgrades like extensions of Hector and Aspen Road and upgraded servicing for the area. The work we've done to update the DND height restrictions will not only benefit this development, but the entire Comox Valley. Just next slide here is the conceptual master plan. So we've identified the wetland area in the southwest corner of 2077 Hector Road. We'll be following the recommendations for a 15-meter buffer around that surveyed wetland. We had multiple assessments done on that area with the same conclusion of the 15-meter buffer. The tree retention, it's fairly early stages to look at what that might look like. We're committed to the Town of Comox tree bylaw. But we really need to get into the development permit and site layouts to determine a detailed strategy there. On the environmental front, a detailed report was completed for this property, which identified the ESA areas. We acknowledge these areas and they will be considered when we do further site planning for development permit submissions. There's a stormwater retention pond on the northeast corner of the 2077 hectare property. That will be constructed by High Street and dedicated to the Town of Comox. The greenway, a 10-meter wide greenway, will be provided on the south side of Hector Road, dedicated to the Town of Comox, which will connect to the adjacent property to the west and to the existing 20-meter greenway south of our Aspen West property. I feel it fitting to talk a bit more about the greenway and trail alignment. I know it's been a topic of conversation. We're in favor of trail connections where it makes sense. We provided one at Aspen View, which is our current community in Comox. We're in favor. There's no denying that. We're providing a 10-meter wide trail that provides a continuation of the greenway on Hector for future connections to Anderton that can line up with the transportation master plan adopted in 2020. That alignment totally makes sense. The trail request came after the traffic study eliminated the need for the road through our site. There's no study or plan of any kind that points out the need for a trail through our private community. This was a requirement placed at a later stage after years of discussion. The trail does not make sense and does not work. are we trying to create a shortcut of maybe 20 feet for people walking down Hector? Would you want a public trail in your backyard with no fence? Again, we are in favor of trails where they make sense. And this does not, and we will not proceed with rezoning with this being a requirement. As I stated at the beginning, the question today is do you want net zero ready, carbon free, multifamily housing in Comox? If you do, we should take this to the next step and move it to public hearing. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Neil. And do we have any questions? Councillor Kern.
Hi, Neil. Thanks for the presentation. Yeah, we all probably have many questions, but formulating them. First of all, I just want to say thanks for having a chance to chat about this tonight. So I love the fact that the Hector Greenway is going to be up on the north end of the property. I think that's great. I think that's going to be a really nice amenity. Love the fact that phase 2, I think, has the daycare facility, the Affordable Housing Contribution Fund, and I love with a capital L the no gas to the buildings, the carbon-free, fully electric step 4 code buildings. So that's awesome. One question I have is, it's not about the trail. It's about the percentage of rental versus ownership. And when we previously spoke, that's going to be a market decision, maybe like 6 months out. And I think to me, this project is very different. If I knew it was going to be 100% for sale condos versus 100% rental, where we know the big need in our community is rental properties, because we have such a high level of properties that are condos or homes. It's just a very different project to me. So I know you can't say for certain that, although I wish you would, that it's going to be like 80% rental or 90% rental, but it's hard for me to make a decision on this project not knowing what it's actually going to look like 5 years from now or 10 years from now, depending on which phase we're talking about. So could you just talk about that and try to give me and our community assurance of what is this actually going to look like? Are these condos or are these rental buildings? Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Councillor Kerr. It's, I'm not going to stand up here and say it's going to be 50-50 because I don't know. One thing I can say for certain is it's not going to be 100% rental or 100% condos. It will be a mix. And like we discussed, there's so many different factors that determines that. Interest rates right now, like for us, and we talked about it earlier, phase 1 right now, the triangular piece, Aspen West, we do have slated as rental. With the higher interest rates, the condos aren't as appealing right now. So there is a market for that currently. But there's so many different factors that could be at play here that, it's hard to commit to saying 80%, 70%. It will be a mix, but I can't sit here and I don't want to lead you astray. It will be a mix of rental and for sale product.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Grant.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that I think there's a big need for both, to be honest with you. If you talk to the realtors, I know there's a few of them today, and they'll tell you that you need a little bit of both, and if we need some less expensive for sale housing, that's almost as important as the rental. But my question is, you said that we were low-rise apartment. Is that 4 stories? I don't know. Yeah, for us, I think with the new zoning requirements, you can go up to 6 stories with the new zones that have been proposed. I can tell you right now, currently, what we're thinking is not over 4. Once you get over 4 in the new zones, you need to step the building. It's not an efficient model for us to do. We operate under efficiency and stacking of units, and that doesn't work well for us. So it also creates parking issues because you can't get as much parking into the buildings that you need. So right now we're primarily targeting 4-story, and I think with the new structural code that's coming in shortly, it'll be challenging to sort of 6-story wood frame conventionally. So, right. Thank you.
Okay, and online we have Mayor Minions.
Thank you. And thanks, Neil, for the presentation. It's always great to see the amenities that are being proposed so we can kind of fully just look at the big picture, environment, trails, all those things inclusive. Just kind of wondering, I heard you kind of clearly say that the rezone wouldn't happen if it was a town-owned 20-meter trailway, or as Trevor at Broad Street had mentioned, like a statutory right-of-way somewhere in the middle versus no trail and town-owned would be one possible option. Can you just speak to, if it's been discussed, if it was a smaller statutory way but left some kind of green space, open space for residents there in the community, what High Street's position on that would be, just so when we get there on the council meeting, we kind of clearly understand what the three options are and what High Street's stance on each of those is. So again, if it was a statutory right of way, where High Street is on that concept.
Yeah, no, thank you for the comment. For us, like we've reviewed this thoroughly internally. We're not interested in a trail through our development, whether it's a statutory right of way, whether it's a dedication. It's just, there's a bunch of different concerns around it. I've stated a few of them. You know, you really do open it up to the public, and you know, when you have somebody out there in the middle of the night creating a disturbance for our residents on our property, who do we call? How do we deal with that? We're gonna have trails throughout our development internally and meant for our people to use that live there. There'll be amenity buildings, there'll be the wetland area, lots of open green space on, you know, the Aspen East site up in the corner there too. So, you know, we're creating these amenities for the people of our development. And we don't want to introduce a public trail through the property. When we, you know, if it made sense and there was some functionality there, we just can't see the benefit of it. We've got a 10-meter wide greenway along Hector Road, which creates great connectivity for pedestrians getting to Aspen. We just don't see the need to connect through a private development to make that connection over to Aspen.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Okay, and Councillor Hazlet?
Thank you. A couple of questions here for you. Just to kind of confirm for me, how many phases are you looking to build out in, and what is the order that this time you guys would be looking to start building?
Yeah, sure. The phases to be determined yet. The first phase we've identified is the Aspen West piece, so the triangular piece there, that would be done as one phase. Likely the other two sites, they are larger sites, will be broken up into 2 phases each. So, you know, I think we'd be looking at 5 to 6 phases over the span again of 6 to 10 years, depending on what the market demand is out there. The order of events there to be determined a little bit. If you look at in the phase development agreement, there's some specific requirements around building that commercial space. I believe it's after 400 units. So we will be doing some work on the Aspen East site after Aspen West. We can't build everything out and then come back and do the commercial space after. So I would think the Hector piece is probably would happen in one of the later phases.
Perfect, thank you. And then my second question is kind of based on the map. Obviously, it's a bit of a rural surrounding around there. What are the buildings going to look like as far as setbacks against those buildings to kind of help kind of preserve those neighboring landowners with not having anything kind of slammed right up against them?
Yeah, I believe we've got 5-meter buffer, 5-meter setbacks against those properties. There's what we're going to try to, and you can see in the conceptual plan there, is we've tried to, you know, align our lower density townhomes in those areas where we interface, as well as, you know, some of the green spaces. You know, the wetland is down near the south end of Hector there too. So where possible, we've really tried to, you know, work within the setbacks that we've been given, but also provide the lower density, sort of less intrusive type development in those areas.
Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Blacklock?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I just have one question around the biological consulting for the project. You put up a slide that showed the many development requirements that the town has put on you since you first acquired this site. And when you hire a registered professional biologist to work on a project such as this, do you typically, and I just want to address something that Julie said before you, is it typical for you to order such independent professional biologist reports and have them delivered to you in draft form and then be negotiated at a later date? Or is it typical that the RP Bio is a trusted independent professional and provides an independent report to you and you rely on that in your development planning?
Yeah, for sure. We don't have any say in that. We hire them to do an environmental assessment of the property and they produce a report. It's not a negotiated item there, so it's totally independent, third party. We don't influence the process.
Right. And the project references some requirement for commercial space in addition to daycare space. You know, when you're talking about adding this many people to an area which is relatively low density, although increasing every day, what kind of commercial space or commercial uses would you expect to see in that area as far as a neighborhood commercial hub?
Yeah, for us, the requirement under the phase development agreement is 600 square meters of commercial space being provided, so 6,000 square feet. You know, of that, the town does have an option to purchase daycare space from that, you know, in lieu of affordable housing contributions or other options as they see fit. You know, it's not going to be Save on Foods and a Shoppers Drug Mart. It's going to be smaller professional services. This isn't going to be a destination commercial development. So, you know, those smaller spaces, it would, you know, probably look at breaking these up into, you know, 1,000 square foot units type thing. But yeah, definitely a smaller development.
Okay, thank you, Neil.
Okay, we have a question from Councillor Mayer.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the presentation, and I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of your design and the attention you're paying to environmental impact. I'm hoping for a little coffee shop and maybe a neighborhood store in some of those commercial spaces, so it's more of a complete community. I also really appreciate the mix of housing that you're proposing. That is exactly what our housing needs assessment says we need. We just have to get the affordable part figured out. So you talked about solar at the beginning. Can you just clarify, were you putting solar on all the buildings or just the phase one, or not sure yet?
No, we put solar on all our buildings. So on the bigger projects, we can max out at 100 kilowatt array. So we max out to whatever the utility commission will allow us. So all our projects and even our townhome projects will include a solar component there.
That's awesome. Thank you. And lots of folks are really worried about water. And I noticed when I was reading through the package, there was a couple of letters that were concerned about with our population increase, the increase in water use. Can you talk at all about how you're addressing that or thinking about that in your developments?
Sure. I might actually call up Josh from Islander here to speak a bit on he's our civil engineer on the project and can speak to it a lot better than I can here.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, generally when we get into detailed design, we start to look at ways that we can reduce irrigation demands and that sort of thing. Work with landscape architects and that's generally the way that we do it. For stormwater management, we're looking at infiltrating water in the site. So that's going to make a lot of difference for the aquifer.
That's great.
Any other questions?
I guess it would just, you capture it, I think, with the water use in home with whatever you're buying for appliances and whatnot. You've talked about that a little bit. So I think that's okay. My final question is just related a little bit to the phasing and some of the concerns that much of the community has around environmental impact. So I think it's the Hector property in particular, with the wetlands that seems to be causing the most concern. So can you talk a little bit about how set in stone your current design concepts are for that? And I think I was reading the Brooklyn Watershed Society had some concerns about potential connection to the fish-bearing stream. So even in the case that all of this was kind of approved, could there still be an openness to kind of exploring how to protect those wetlands as much as possible?
Yeah, for sure. The only thing set in stone is the wetland on that site, to be completely honest, and we recognize that we need a stormwater retention pond. Again, that has to go through detailed design. We'd love to try to shrink that pond a little bit and create more buffers between the buildings and the adjacent properties there too. I do have, if we're talking Brooklyn Creek and kind of those connections, we've got ROE here, our environmental group. It might be good if I get Blake up here to speak a bit to that.
What is the question, Neil? Sorry.
Just the, how
Yeah, so for background, there's a ditch bordering the north property boundary of the Hector Road site, and that does connect to Anderton Road and Brooklyn Creek. I'm not sure the exact distance. We've got it in our initial report. So we've looked at the implications there. Currently, that ditch doesn't flow. Even we've been out there under heavy precipitation events. We haven't seen flow in the ditch where it borders Hector Road. It does start flowing further south, so we know it contributes water sort of further down Hector Road to Brooklyn Creek. So there's implications with the construction of the stormwater pond and the outlet there. So we need to get more details from a future stormwater management plan, what volumes look like, what the design of the pond looks like with the outputs there, and then implications for water quality in the Hector Road ditch, Anderton Road ditch, and then ultimately Brooklyn Creek.
That's great. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that additional information. I think that's helpful for people to know. So it sounds like there's still some work to be done, and that isn't all completely decided.
Yeah, we know that this is there. We know that if water is introduced to the ditch, it'll make its way to Brooklyn Creek. There's potential permitting implications there with to the ditch, and like I said, we need the details on flow before we can take that next step.
That's great. And can you just speak to the design concept, like how set that is versus how much of an early draft that is?
Yeah, the design concept, generally shows our intent. We wanted the lower density development on the south side of Hector, just to buffer the residential piece that's down there. But these are just sort of general areas of the site. We're looking at densities, and we nothing is set in stone at this point.
That's great. And just thank you for saying the word density, because that was another concern that I heard in a lot of letters. And I understand, of course, there's a business here to be done. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit maybe about a range of density that if there is such a thing when you're looking at development like this, just to help people understand.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different factors, to be honest. Like this is, and been working with staff over the last few years on this and the zones. There's some minimum density targets that staff has set aside for these sites, and I think I remember correctly, 50 units per hectare, ranging from there to 150. So that's sort of the range of these developments. It's hard to say. There's not sort of one magic number that makes it work. It depends on what you've paid for the land and what the current construction costs are. To say it's 75 units per hectare, it's a little difficult to say exactly what that would be. I think on the first phase one, where we've done sort of the most work, that Aspen West piece, I think we're in the 110 range as far as units per hectare, but that site doesn't have the townhomes on it. So, you know, when you introduce townhomes, I would think that density would drop probably below 100, but there's no magic to it necessarily. Lots of different factors at play there.
That makes sense. Thank you so much. That's all my questions.
Thank you. And seeing no further questions, thank you, Neil, for your presentation. And as you know, we'll be talking about this later on in the agenda. So that concludes our delegations for tonight. And we'll move on to the adoption of minutes for the regular council meeting. Minutes been moved by Councillor Grant, seconded by Councillor Kerr. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And meetings for the special council meeting minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded for adoption. All those in favor? Thank you. It's carried unanimously. And moving down to the consent agenda.
I'll move that.
Consent agenda items be
Second.
received for information have been moved and seconded. All those in favor? And are there any items that you would like to discuss?
Did I pull out 3 through 6
Okay,
plus number 10? So
3,
those are all the ones on pedestrian crossing on Anderson Road, and I think they've got
Second that.
poles as well on that.
okay, and we've had a seconder and open for discussion.
So I would suggest that a good thing to do here would be to send this. We used to have a traffic safety committee. I don't know if we still do. If not, we should send these to our staff to have a look at. Engineering of roads and figuring out traffic volumes and stuff is far beyond my pay grade. But I think that if we send these to staff, they can have a look through these, come up with some recommendations. And I think it was noted that we would want them back before budget so that we can actually, if there is some changes, we can get them in the budget. But I would suggest that's the right way to deal with those. So I would move that if that's okay.
Okay, can we have a seconder?
Second.
Good, moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? I only have one, and that is additionally that the parents might be encouraged, or perhaps we could encourage the RCMP to do a traffic safety education piece, probably too late this year for this school year, but perhaps early in September, that might be worth considering.
Yeah, I think that with all the new development that we have coming in with the new Bill 44 that the province is foisting upon us, we're going to see our traffic flows increase, and we're going to have these issues a lot. And that's why I think that the Traffic Safety Committee is probably a good place to send this to, and if not to staff, because I think this is just going to get more and more and more as we go. So I think we really need to take it seriously and do it that way.
Do we have a motion on the floor? Okay. Could we just hear it again?
The motion is to refer these traffic concerns to staff for a report back prior to budgeting.
Right. All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried unanimously. Are there any other letters that need to be pulled out? Councillor Kurt.
Council Mayor can go first.
I think it was number 9. It was the Head Injury Society.
Okay, can we have a seconder for that?
Second. That was gonna be mine too.
Okay. Would you like to speak to that?
Sure. I noticed that the request was put in too late for us to consider it. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank Steph McGowan, the previous councillor, for her work with the Comox Valley Head Injury Society, and just take the moment to raise a little bit of awareness about brain injury and promote the safety devices such as sports helmets, hard hats, and seat belts, because that's such a vital prevention of brain injuries. And maybe I will pass it to Councillor Kerr in case there's anything he would like to add.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr.
Thanks, Councilor Mayor and Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to just raise awareness as well. I was actually at Mike's Miles event and today, and he's walking local hero. He's walking 20+ kilometers a day for the next week, and he has a brain injury, and this is a really huge thing for him to be doing, and it's their biggest fundraiser of the year. And I just want to thank the Head Injury Society for all of the work they do for patients of mine and for members of our community. And go Mike. And I got a chance to walk his first kilometer with him today, and he walks pretty fast, so I don't know if I could keep up the whole time. So thanks to former Councillor McGowan as well for all the work she's doing with this group.
Thank you. And Councillor Grant.
I'm just wondering what we're going to do with this. I don't think we had a motion on the table because you said we couldn't, but it sounds like everybody wants to do this. So we need a motion, or how do we do that?
A motion for a proclamation?
Yes,
Yes, we need a motion, don't we? Yes.
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, so it's a moved in second, it's been moved in second to have this proclamation for the Brain Injury Awareness Month. We have a question from Mayor Minions.
Thanks, Chair Swift. I just was wondering, I know we're discussing proclamation policies later on the meeting, and I'm not against by any means having a proclamation for this, but I thought we had missed this date, and so it personally would be my preference for us to reach out, just say we had mentioned it, have awareness, but I know that multiple kind of councillors had thought we should discuss proclamations as far as policy, so maybe this will be one of our last ones. Not sure it will go in that direction, but just to note, this policy is on the agenda later on. So I will support it if it's going through and if we've missed it, but just it might be something we should look at considering we're discussing proclamations shortly. Just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? Oh, hey, Councillor Mayor.
Sure, maybe it's just a question to staff. There's the current policy says that it needs to be received at least 4 weeks in advance. And so is it this one I think was intended to make June the month of brain injury awareness. So is it even possible to do it when we're partway through June?
Yes, that's something that we can do if council so wishes to direct this.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to recognize a proclamation for Brain Injury Awareness Month. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's carried unanimously. Thank you. I think, were there any other pieces of correspondence that needed to be taken out? I think there's too many left there. Okay, we'll go on to unfinished business, which is the adoption of the annual report. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And this is just to adopt the annual report. But I would just like to make a comment that I think the annual report looks really good, and it's really interesting to read and see all the projects that have happened over the last year, and loving the pictures and the format. So thank you very much for that. Are there any questions or comments regarding the annual report? No. Okay, so all those in favor of adopting? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And we'll move on to the correspondence from, we have some correspondence from the BIA.
On my light on, move receipt of that. And I think it's probably something we should well look into. I mean, we started this whole process several years back with this being one of the intentions. And so I realize there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in the middle, but I think it's important that we really sit down and think about this. So I'm glad they brought this letter.
Okay, and we have some comments from our CAO.
Thanks. I just wanted to mention to council that this was brought forward from, I believe, from March 6th. And the idea to have it on this agenda was that we were going to have received our economic or a downtown economic and downtown action plan. Council will be receiving that in your next meeting, and we're going to be looking to schedule a session for council over summer for receiving both this report as well as your climate action plan and applying, making decisions on how you want to apply that to your strategic plan. So you will have the opportunity to take a look and discuss and decide how you want to move forward here this summer.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? No. Okay. Do we have to, we don't have to receive that. No. Okay, moving down to, we have a verbal update regarding Make Back Road Safe.
Second.
Okay, and over to staff.
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight that there has been a sort of valley-wide working group commissioned on this. There is a letter that's going to be going out from all of the jurisdictions, Comox, Courtney, and the CVRD to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure requesting a meeting to help move this process along. So everybody is working together with this. And so I should also mention it's coming from Comox First Nation. So there is a group valley-wide looking to meet with the provincial government to help ensure that this area is looked at.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? I'd just like to say it's nice to see everybody working together. It's quite a complicated roadway there. So we look forward to hearing the outcome of that. And moving down to the consent agenda from Tim McKinnon regarding food vendors on Lazo Road.
I'll move receipt of that and that we review the policy and make appropriate changes. He has the donut vendor has a permit for this year, so I don't think there's anything we can do for this year, but I think we can review this and come up with some appropriate changes for him for next season. So that would be my motion.
I'll second that.
And Councillor Mayor.
I apologize if this was previously discussed, but just a question to staff. So what would be the, are there any options to remove that vendor for this year or to somehow address the two primary issues, which are about the sound and the smell?
Probably nothing to be done this year. I think making the policy change starting next year would be the best way to go. And from what I understand, I think that's amenable to the people in the location.
I was just going to say that I've talked to Mr. McKinnon today and he would be good with that.
Okay, do this. Oh, there's motion on the floor. Oh, okay. All right. So the motion on the floor is to leave it for this year and review the policy for next year. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? No. It's carried unanimously. All right. Let's move on to new business. The first item is the 2025 to 29 budget schedule, and that is to is the report for received for information. And can we have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. And I guess the primary piece of this is to just changing our budgeting cycle, but do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think that it may be worth, given the discussion council had previously, is directing a amendment to the budget schedule to include a report on traffic complaints received throughout the year prior to infrastructure decisions.
Okay.
Yeah, I mentioned that as I don't think I made it part of the motion, but that was mentioned.
Okay.
To do it prior, so we would know what we do.
All right. So is that clear for everybody?
So it would be if council wanted to make a motion to amend the budget schedule to include a date for a report on traffic complaints, traffic concerns.
Moved.
Oh, I think Councillor Mayor has a question.
Do we have to second it before I can ask questions? Okay, I'll second it and then I have a question.
Okay.
It's great to review traffic complaints, but that makes me wonder if there could be other significant issues for budget consideration that we would like that. To me, that was the whole point of shifting this schedule was that we would be able to look more holistically at with a better timing for setting our tax rate, I think was the ultimate goal. So it's great for us to include traffic, but like, does it need to be broader than that?
So there will be, what's included in the budget schedule is reports and updates for council across all of the different departments, as well as updates on your strategic plan. The reason I'm suggesting that we have a specific direction in here around traffic concerns is that we're seeing an increasing number of them. They're coming to council and the cost to address them is quite high. And so we kind of get caught in this situation, which we're in today, where we have a number of concerns around a specific intersection and we don't deal with it today. Next month, there'll be concerns around a different intersection. So it's an opportunity to consolidate all of those concerns and bring them to council at a time where you're weighing your budget considerations. Just in my sort of experience so far, we are addressing all the other items that way already. This seems to just be one that it's been difficult for us to round up. So putting it into the budget schedule should hopefully help in your decision-making process.
Thank you.
So do we need a timeline for that or just prior to?
Just direction, and then
Okay.
the staff will put it in there where it's appropriate for council. And if you don't mind, there's one other comment I wanted to make. So one of the items that's really important in this budget schedule is we are going to be moving our decision-making pretty far into the future. And that's not uncommon for municipalities, but where we start to run into issues is that we are not going to have a picture of what next year's tax revenue is going to be. And so given that, you have really two decisions that you can make. The one that we have recommended in this policy is that you would take your 2020, you would take the previous year's actual tax revenue and you would set that as your budget for the next year. So for example, we're in 2024 this year. So we would take the 2024 actual tax revenue and you would set that as your budget for 2025. And then moving forward, you would always be 1 year delayed. The benefit of that is you will know the exact dollar amount that you have to spend. The drawback of it is that if you have a large influx of non-market housing coming in, you're not going to have access to that money in the year it comes. The reason for this recommendation is that it prevents council from having to predict what housing projects are going to come online, because there is a specific date, and I'm sorry, it escapes me right now, but there's a specific date. It's a one day the project's finished, it's on this year's tax roll, the next day it's on the next year's tax roll. And if you miss that, you could end up being quite far out on your budget projection. So it's something that you can do, but what we have recommended in this budget schedule is that you take your previous year's actual revenue and you set it as your next year. So there'll be a 1 year adjustment period, but after that, moving forward, you'll always know how much money you have to spend in the year proceeding.
Okay, any questions or comments on that? Councillor Blacklock.
Yeah, just the date you're looking for there, Jordan, is October 31st, the assessment state and condition date. Beyond that date, projects in stream are assessed as to their percentage completion at that date and added to the assessment roll beyond that date. If you started your project on November 1st, it wouldn't be picked up by BC Assessment until the following year.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor.
So, did you want to add that into the motion?
No, that's included in the policy. I just
Okay,
wanted to bring it
right.
to council's attention.
All right, thank you. So have we voted on this? I've lost my brain now. No? Okay, so all in favor of the budget schedule for information? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you.
If I may, on this next set of motions we have, I'm just wondering, I think number 3 out of the 6 is to do with the trail piece. and the rest are to do with the rezoning piece. So I'm wondering if we could take 3, if I'm correct with that, and move it down to the bottom. That way we can deal with the rezoning piece, see where that goes, and then we can deal with the trail after, so we don't get them conflict. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
It makes sense to me. Do we have to do anything, CAO to move that piece?
You can introduce the motions however you prefer.
Okay. So, we're on to the bylaw amendments for rezone OCP 23-2, PR 24-9, or 2077 Hector Road and 941 Aspen Road. And the first one is that the official community plan amendment bylaw 1685.11 be given first reading.
I'll move that.
Can I have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. I know this one is really around the land designation and changing it up to 6 stories. It incorporates some of the OCP objectives and the in-stream work on the community, complete communities, and kind of reflects the provincial changes for housing requirements. But does anybody have any questions or comments about that?
Well, I'm just wanted to note too that what we're really doing here is we're moving this along to second reading so that we can have a public hearing, which is when the public can come and have their say on this. And so we're not really changing anything tonight. We're just getting to the point where we can have the public hearing to hear what the public has to say.
Correct. That's just the first reading. So all those in favor? Any opposed? Well, that's carried unanimously. And that number 2, that having considered the town of Comox May 2020 housing needs report and summary form.
Would move too. Say,
All right. Save me from reading the whole thing out. So any questions? Oh,
Second.
Second. Do we have any questions or comments? No? All those in favor? Thank you. It's carried unanimously. And if we can move down to number 4,
I'll move forward.
phased agreement, phased development agreement authorization bylaw.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Number 5, that
I'll move public
a
hearing.
public hearing, and it's scheduled, it's scheduled at this moment for July 10th, 2024, 6 p.m. at the Stair House.
I'll move that.
We have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. And that the subdivision development servicing bylaw amendment be given first and second reading.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried unanimously. And then we'll go back up to number 3, that the Comox zoning amendment bylaw 1850.46 be given first and second reading.
Not sure what to do here. So I was wanting to have a discussion on this regarding whether we actually need a trail or not. It sounds like one of the developers does not want it at all, and the other is kind of reluctantly saying they would. Not 100% sure what the need for it is. So I would have liked to have made a motion that said that we not require a trail, but
I know there is an alternative, but I can't find the page number here.
What council can do, if that's what you wish to debate, is introduce first and second reading, and then on second reading, do an amending motion to have alternative to the recommendation number 2, no trail provision, with the addition of the following as CAO recommendation 2.5, that's schedule 1, outstanding item 1 of planning report RZOCP 23-2, PR 24-9, dated June 5th, 2024, be deleted.
okay. So
So we'll need
I've
2
got that in my
motions. So
memory, yeah.
first, if council wants to do first and second reading,
Should we do first and second, or should we just do first?
you can do first and second.
Okay, I'll move first and second reading.
Okay, so it's been moved. Has it been seconded? Thank you.
And now you can if you wish, you can introduce an amending motion.
We
Okay.
should, but, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so I've never done that before. So, okay, I'm making an amending motion that we not require a trail under all of those things that you just said.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Open for discussion. Thank you. Councillor Kerr?
Yeah, so this is a tough one for me. I mean, the fact that there is going to be a really nice connecting greenway to the north of the property, it makes me very happy. When I look at the east-west corridor and even north-south in the overall official community plan and the transportation master plan, having that connecting greenway is like awesome. I guess I just like to hear maybe from staff the rationale for requesting the trail. We heard from the developers that they're not interested and would prefer not to do it. But just to hear the other side, and I know a little bit was in the report, but for those in the room and those watching online that haven't read all 750 pages of our agenda, if maybe a verbal report just on the rationale for providing the trail and why a trail through the middle is requested from staff and planning. Thanks.
I'll turn that over to Director Commenz.
Depends on the degree or the service level that you want in regards to the environmental aspects on the site. In terms of your greenway plans and trails, and also like in terms of the pedestrian network, there's a heavy focus in the current OCP on alternative transportation. Alternative transportation tends to be very sensitive to distance and also very sensitive to traffic. So if you want to have really good sort of ends of its spectrum, if you have a place like New Westminster, Vancouver, that was built on the old grid system, you'll have a busy road, typically relatively short distance away. You'll have a parallel road that has less traffic, and that will be the road that pedestrians use. And then they'll go on to the busier road, even though it does have full services like sidewalks and street trees and everything else. They'll go on to that at the last point. It's a more pleasant walk, and it's a safer walk if you're worried about things like traffic with children and things like that. At the other far extreme is a place like Surrey, Richmond, where you have a number of arterials, and then their local road network is extremely lack of connection. So what that means, if you want to go from point A to point B as crow flies, you're going to have to travel a much greater distance. So that really discourages alternative transportation forms. In this case, in terms of the two greenways, one's greenway on the trail, the greenway on Hector, the ultimate is to, as soon as possible, bend that north so that it links up with Brooklyn Creek, the upper reaches of the Brooklyn Creek, so that we can have that trail as it's an interregional trail. So it's to connect to Brooklyn Creek, run along the upper reaches of Brooklyn Creek, and then connect over to Dryden. And using Dryden, then connect up to Pritchard, a portion of Pritchard, and that would connect that whole area with the parks in Comox and Courtney, west, south. So it's that level of a connection. This one, if you were to go ahead with the trail, would run to the east. So it'd be connecting Aspen and then connecting it with Anderton. If you're looking at the density of this kind of a development, that population, for them to be able to connect to Aspen, and the bus right now, our frequent bus services on Catherine, I think they're more of our arterial commercial along that area. So that preliminary indications that Hector will actually go up to a local road, given the traffic levels if this kind of development continues. in that area, would go up to a local connector. So it's how much of a service level do you wish to obtain in regards to the alternative transportation, in regards to public access to things like environmentally sensitive areas that can provide recreation facilities. And it does provide an area, as we're squeezing these sites with density, in terms of things, more room for tree canopy. That's the best that I can explain on it. So it's really the service level you want to hit on those items.
Okay, any further, Councillor Mayor?
Just maybe a follow-up question for staff. I noticed in the referral from the CBRD that they talked about how surrounding environmentally sensitive areas of high significance with buildings and roadways stands in contrast to several OCP and RGS policies. And the ones they list are all about protection and restoration. But then also in the letter from the Waterland and Resource Stewardship Ministry, they thought that the new east-west road would actually impact the wetlands cumulatively by adding surrounding the area again with built infrastructure. So I appreciate what you're saying about the adding kind of a more protected pathway for walking and cycling and the quieter one as well. Really appreciate that. I'm curious if you kind of did that environmental impact analysis on that additional east-west road or pathway.
No, we did not. We would see the trail as skirting. I mean, right now, those environmental areas are encompassed by hard surface areas. And what we would see is the trail, it be skirting on those same hard surface areas that are being developed on the outreaches, as opposed to any kind of paths within the environmentally sensitive area.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we have a question from Mayor Minions.
Thank you. Just a follow up to Director Commend's kind of on the staff recommendation there and the three options to include as recommended, do no path at all, or possibly a statutory right of way. I'm just wondering if from a staff perspective, doing some kind of right of way or something that was kept by the developer really didn't kind of fit the bill for what we were trying to do to keep the tree canopy and keep some, you know, even just the trails for the, I think it's like 1,700 residents that would live there going throughout the property, which I understand would affect the density, but possibly make it a better rounded community. Can we just get a quick staff opinion on that statutory right of way option kind of in the middle?
Ownership is 9/10 law. So statutory right of way, the ownership still vests with the property owner. You have legal rights over it. It creates an inherent, it can create an inherent conflict. You have the property owner being responsible for maintenance, for upkeep, but you have public usage. It also raises issues, as mentioned in a presentation by the applicant, as to this is a private area and the public is walking in this private area. Elsewhere where we've had similar things, we have stratas due to cost and privacy concerns, limiting access on the statutory right of way, and surrounding neighbors wishing to have more access. So you create that dynamic. If it's dedicated, that dynamic is within the town's control, fully within the town's control. If you want to limit access, if you want to restrict access, if you want to set hours of operation, if you want to modify that, you are in control of that as the land is yours. Whereas otherwise you're bound to the statutory right of way. And if there is a dispute, then you're looking at taking legal matters to solve the dispute.
And just to add to that as well, the road dedication would have additional setbacks from the edge, so it'll provide a wider path. You'll be able to get a larger tree canopy. When you're going to the SRW, it's those setbacks aren't there, which reduces the impact to the development, but also reduces the sort of visual width of the path as well. So it just going back to what Director Commend said earlier, it really just comes down to the three service level options that council has in front of them and the varying levels of impact it'll have on the development.
And Councillor Mayor, did you have a question or comment? No. Councillor Kern.
Just two questions for staff. Maybe I'll just ask them one after the other to not confuse the issue. The first one is for the pond, will there be an expectation that the Hector Greenway feeds into the pathway leading around the pond, so people could go, take their dog for a walk along the Greenway, do a loop of the pond, and then keep going or head back?
Yes, these are designed to be retention ponds to retain water, provide a higher visual amenity. So that is inherent in that design.
Okay. Thanks. And I also realize that we're not at that planning specific stage yet either, just in concept. And just to help me put some kind of numbers to this, on a scale of 1 to 10, 0 being no greenway and no pathway, and 10 being highest service level greenway and a nice meandering pathway with road dedication and width, where would no path be? So you just have a greenway. So we have a nice greenway along the north, no pathway through the middle. Where would that be from a service level standpoint on a scale of 0 to 10?
I'll just jump to that. That's
Give me a number.
I think we'll decline to put a number on it. I think that really comes down to the weighting, and the reason I say that, it comes down to the weighting that council puts on the importance of the different balancing of the issues, and so I'm sorry I'm not able to provide that. No, I need to leave it there.
The premise of the question is how, if we already have a walking path, along the north, connecting into the pond, how much more benefit is it? And it's hard for me to conceptualize this. How much more benefit is it going to be to have another pathway through the middle? And that's the crux of the question. Is it a little bit better to have both, or is it significantly better? We should definitely have that level of service from council direction.
I see what you're saying. So I'm going to think very carefully before I answer.
You're on the spot right now.
We have a greenway going along the north of the property. And so this additional trail is an increase in service levels that will allow an additional trail through the property that will be of benefit to the residents. It is a marginal change in the service level because you have the greenway to the north. If the greenway to the north was not there, then this would introduce something that was missing from the property completely. This adds more convenience to the ability to use that property through alternate transportation means. I think
That's a great answer. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Grant.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was going to be my comment too, is we've got trails that are very close to this already, and all of the things that we're trying to add trails onto, you're going to be able to connect into them anyway. Not to mention that this trail on High Street won't even go in for 6 to 10 years, and that could completely change at that time. So I get the reluctance to say we're going to do this because they just don't know where they're going to be at that time. And I don't think we're really losing very much. I would also think that if you didn't put a trailway in at all, that you would save some trees in that as well.
Okay. Oh, I see Councillor has a comment.
Thanks. Just to confirm, based on some of these conceptual drawings, this east-west trail that we're talking about, or the standard right-of-way, is in addition to the trails that the developer has already got that are kind of meandering through the property, correct? Question of staff?
Director comments.
No, it would, the trail would pick up the ones that meander through the property. So right now, people are doing a diagonal cut through the property. And depending on how far south you were to connect this trail to Aspen, then you'd be allowing for that diagonal cut. You could come across, and then the trail would connect to, because it would also take in the south portion of the pond, the trail around the pond, and then that would allow you to go north. So you'd be cutting distance off as you travel to the northeast.
I think what it is I'm just looking at the in High Street's presentation on page 7 here. I can see that they have trails going through the property as well. So to me, it's just one more going through the property when there's when there's the trail going to along Hector Road, and then there's the additional trails that are in the green spaces, and then it would just be one more right of way that is kind of cutting through the property as well. So it feels like there's a substantial amount of walking space through there, and that's great. And I think it looks really, really good based on these conceptual drawings. But I'm trying to see the point whether or not we need to add.
Those would be private. Those would be private trails for the use of the residents. So they're internal pathways.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions, comments? We have a motion on the floor, I believe. Would we like to review it? Just
There's the first and second reading is on the floor with an amendment to remove the requirement for the path.
okay. And there's,
You would be voting on the amendment right now.
okay, all those in favor of the amendment? And that passes. Any opposed? No? So that passes unanimously. So now we go to the original motion, or the amended motion, sorry. It's already on the floor. So that is to eliminate the pen, correct? Okay, so all those in favor? And any opposed? No, that's carried. Thank you. Okay. All right. So now we're going to move on to our community event recognition policy. And this is one about the proclamation review. Maybe we should just break for a few moments in case people want to leave. Yeah, let's take a couple minute break. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We can take our seats. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to the community event recognition policy. And it's about the proclamation review. And I think this is just, we had asked to, for an annual review. Is that correct, CAO?
Council requested that this policy come on your agenda because there was discussion around removing proclamations, no longer allowing proclamations.
Okay. Okay, so, so questions or comments?
So my only question in this, and I honestly, after the 9,000 pages, I didn't actually read this one. So I'm just wondering, like we have this proclamation up above. If someone sends in for a proclamation, it fits everything that all the criteria, does council actually need to deal with it, or can we just do them? Or should we, or does that have to come to council every time?
The policy as it is right now, it comes to council every time. I would be as well. If council wanted to say, hey, if you meet all of these criteria, we'll automatically do the proclamation. That would be fine as well. You just wouldn't know what you're proclaiming, and the proclamations come from council. So I think it would make sense that they at least hit your agenda. So right now it just goes into your correspondence and you vote. Usually if it meets the policy, you just vote yes and we move forward.
Okay, that makes sense. Somebody might ask you why the lights are a different color. It's good to actually know. You're right. Okay, sorry.
Okay, and Mayor Minions.
Thanks, Chair Swift. Yeah, a couple of us had brought this up as something that we would maybe look to consider. We're getting somewhere between 30, 35 a year. And even though it doesn't sound warm and fuzzy to say we would not do them any longer, I think when you look at like what our business is around community development and environment, tax rate setting, all these really big important things, I'm just not sure for the small amount of staff time it does take that it's really worth diluting what we're doing to do these proclamations. I normally find I have to kind of look up who the group is there something controversial or religion, or there's different aspects to them, and I just think at the end of the day we're unfortunately not really getting anything done by making these proclamations on an ongoing basis. So I know that from a staff perspective, having the flag policy and the lighting policy isn't really taking too much, and it's something the public can kind of visually see and understand, but the proclamations I don't think are really landing in the community from my perspective of talking to people. So I would be supportive of looking at eliminating that portion of the policy, just the one proclamation piece, but I'd be really open to hearing what the rest of council thinks, as that may not be a popular belief, but I know other municipalities across Canada are making that consideration, is it's just not our place of our main business that we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Grant.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that. When you, when we go and we put these out, I mean, who's going down to our park at 10 o'clock at night to see the lights, and then we don't even really know what they are. And I think that, I mean, this was a thing that kind of got out of control with Courtney a few years back, where they were running about 4 a week, and it just got silly. So I would actually look at maybe taking the proclamation piece out of this as well.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Mayor.
I have been surprised since joining council to see how much like participation, symbolic participation and endorsement from the local government means in the community. Having said that, and so that's like showing up at events and cutting ribbons, and there's lots of that. It is a really significant part, I think, of the role of being an elected official. Having said that, I agree with everything that you've raised about proclamations in particular. So I'd be in favor of removing them. I do feel like the flag raising is important. Lighting, the lighting feels like in the middle for me. So I'd be fine just with removing the proclamations. Thanks.
Councillor Graham.
Okay, so now we've done this again, but we don't have a motion. So, so if we wanted to do this, would you want a motion or can we just tell you we think that's good? We need a motion. I'll make a motion that we remove proclamations from your community events recognition policy.
Second.
Okay, so this is to remove the proclamations from our policy. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you.
Can we just, sorry, pause for 1 second? So we're
7.05. Sorry, 7.05, I think is the part that we would be removing. Sorry to interrupt. Page 736 of the agenda.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, just so page 736. My understanding, the intent of the motion was to remove item 7.05 from the policy.
Yeah, the proclamations. Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to continue to fly community flags on the flagpole. So we have an application for that. I just wanted to check and see maybe with Cami. Is our proclamation application and the light up application the same application? Are those generally done in tandem?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Now, so I just wanted to bring that to council's attention. Council, we oftentimes receive the proclamations and the light ups together. So you've eliminated the proclamations, but you're going to continue to receive the light up requests and you'll have to make decisions on those light up requests. Is that what you want? I had no problem either way. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that part of it's still going to be coming through.
Councillor Mayor.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to check that with Mayor Minions because it sounds like some of this burden is landing on that role of mayor. So what's your feeling about that?
I don't want to be like the Grinch. If it wasn't coming across council and it's something that staff just changed the lights on somewhat of their own knowledge base, I would be supportive of that. But if that's not possible and lighting requests we're going to continue to come to council, I would probably include that personally. As CAO Wall, is there a way where those requests don't need to, if it's lighting only and not proclamation, does that need to come through council, or can that be done on a staff knowledge basis of what's appropriate and not?
Yeah, we can continue to have the application policy. And then if it checks all of those boxes, what it normally does is comes to council for approval. We can just say, okay, well, it's met all the criteria and not bring it to council and just do the light ups. But we wouldn't be, I guess the next question from that, would we be releasing social media or any other comments about why we've done the light up, or would we just be doing the light up? That's where the proclamations and the lights get tied together. So we can absolutely do that and we can post about it. Just wanting clarification from council what you're looking for.
Just a follow-up if possible. Would you say, I thought we were doing quite a few more proclamations than light requests. I don't know if it's 2 to 1 or what it is, but how many lighting requests are we actually getting in a year basis, like a total estimate range? I don't know if it's 5 or 30, but I thought we got a lot more proclamations than we got for lighting requests.
Yeah, we get a lot more proclamations than we do for proclamations and lighting requests. I'd say if we're getting 30 proclamations in a year, we're probably getting 7 to 10 light up requests a year.
Okay. So from just my own personal viewpoint, I'm okay leaving the lighting request with staff, and maybe in a year, if this policy did come back on like an annual basis, we can just check back in and see where that landed. I guess the lights would be getting changed, and maybe social media posts just highlighting it if it's something, again, totally staff, whatever staff feels is appropriate with historical. But if proclamations are gone and we're not getting the lighting requests, I'm great with leaving it for now.
I do want to just, I'm sorry to be a fly in the ointment on this one, but I just want to be careful. So if the risk I see here is that if we do light up requests and we approve them and we do social media posts as to why we're doing the light up requests, I worry that the question is going to come to council why you wouldn't do a proclamation when you're releasing on social media, basically a proclamation for a group because they asked for the light up request. Again, we can do it, but that would be my concern. Or if we just do the light up without any social media, then you're getting into the same sort of situation that the proclamations were in. But I want to make sure that we have that clear understanding with council that if we're not going to do any social media posts, that you understand that's the case. Because groups will come to council and say, well, why wouldn't you share our information if you're doing the light up?
Okay, I will move that we stop doing the lighting also. Unless, then I'll put that on the table and see what other people's
I'll
opinions.
second that, but my biggest concern here is if the Oilers win the cup, Jordan's gonna be down there trying to get Oilers colors up, and I'm not sure we want to do that.
I believe our system is limited to one color at a time, so I can't do orange and blue, unfortunately.
Dear. Well, I guess it just makes it a more straightforward policy if we include or we exclude the proclamations and the lighting together rather than having it halfway. All right, are we ready to vote on that? Okay, all those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. And moving on, we're talking about council correspondence policy CCL 006 and for an update.
That was put on your agenda simply because the proclamation policy was an opportunity for council to review it. There's no recommendations from staff on this.
Is there anybody that would like to comment on the correspondence policies? No? Okay, so moving along to the Pearl Ellis display cases. This is just to extend their license of use at the rec center.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. And moving on to the remedial action order for 328 Denman Street.
I would move the motion.
Okay. We have a
Second.
seconder. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. And on to the Regional Recreation Assistance Program. This is to make the program permanent.
So is that a motion that we want, or are we just saying? Okay, I'll move that.
That's a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries unanimously. And down to correspondence. What would it be this? Yes. Yep. Down to correspondence, we have a letter from Ken Price, the Chief Counsel for Comox First Nation. He's request for a letter of support for an addition to a reserve application.
I will move receipt and that we grant them the letter.
Second.
Okay. Any comments or questions? No, all those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you. And down to the Director of Pride Society, request for reconsideration of the property tax exemption for Bay Community Church.
I would move receipt of that.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Councillor Kern.
Just a question for staff. I know that's coming back to us. Could you just remind me the date or approximate date that that's coming back for discussion?
June 19th.
Okay, thank you. So do do we need to vote on that? No, okay. Okay, so no late items. Reports from members of council. Let's start with Councillor Haslett.
Did a Destair meeting, regular Destair meeting, as well as a Nautical Days meeting, and currently at FCM in Calgary.
Thank you. And Councillor Blackwood? Councillor Blacklock, you're on mute. There you go. Oh, no, you're still on mute.
I'm unmuted now. Sorry
There
about-
you go.
I just wanted to remind council that the Comox Valley Substance Use Strategy is having their event upcoming on June 11th, and we are still, unfortunately, I will still not be back from my conference here in PEI. So if there is any council member who would like to attend, that is a June 11th, 10:30 to 1 event at the Philberg Center. And that's to look at phase 3 of the substance use strategy report, as well as sort of kick off the new peer assisted care teams that will be starting in downtown Courtenay soon enough. So that's it for me. We'll see you back in Comox next week.
Thank you. And we'll go on to Mayor Minions.
Thank you. Just 2 quick points from things attended. I attended the Island Coastal Economic Trust meeting that happens 3 or 4 times a year, and they have now received the $10 million funds to kind of continue for potentially 4 to 6 years. We were looking to get 150 to 250 million, and they got enough to keep the doors open for, again, maybe 3 to 5 years. So good news, bad news, but something the region is continuing to advocate for. But the check was kind of taking time to get to us from the province, and that did arrive. So they're continuing to do projects like the Marine Service Building they supported and other regional projects for economic development, which is super important at the moment. I just wanted a really quick shout out to the Comox Fire Department for the truck naming ceremony for John Marinas. That was about a week and a half ago. It was fantastically attended, and just wanted to throw out kudos to, I think most of us were all there and staff was there, and it was just a really nice celebration. So thank you to the fire department for throwing an exceptional event there. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go on to Councillor Kerr.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, fire truck event was great. Congrats to the chief and the fire service. Attended the views, held an information session with many of you as well. We're there about the new Dementia Village and the 156 beds, and really neat hearing about how they're moving from an institutional model to a social relational model. So really looking forward to caring for some of my patients there very soon. Attended the CBRD strategic planning session along with Councillor Grant, and the big topic was housing, and more housing. And really we were focusing in on the biggest need in our area, which is non-market rental housing, and some strategies to tackle that. Nautical Days meeting, just a reminder everyone, August 3rd to 5th, the parade on the 5th. It's going to be a great event again, and thanks to all the work Councillor Haslett is doing as well, getting us ready for that event. And to the Nautical Days Committee. The air show was a blast, and I know many of us were there and we talked about it, but I couldn't believe how many bikes were there. There was over 1,100 bikes that showed up. So congrats to the Cycling Coalition for having the capacity to lock up all of those bikes. Highlight of my week last week was volunteering at the Brooklyn School Salad Bar. Lots of hungry kids came through, and I just wanted to say thanks to all of the volunteers. About 10 to 12 parent volunteers do that every week to ensure the kids have a healthy lunch, and it's really neat to see, and there's talk about that moving to some of the high schools as well. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Grant.
Well, he stole all my thunder, so I'll just say I went to the John Marinas fire truck dedication and got nailed to buy a ducky ticket, as it's the way it should be when it's dedicated to John Marinas. I also went to the strat planning session at the RD for housing and Dementia Village. So we learned all about Dementia Village. We all thought it was going to be a tour through the building, but it turned out not to be. That's coming up in about 30 days.
And Councillor Mayor.
Thank you. I attended the Bain Sound Leopard Channel Eco Forum out at the Deep Bay Marine Station. And it was a very informative day. They are looking at doing a state of the sound report. One of the things that I learned is that anytime anyone flushes their bilge out, they can sense it actually with the testing that they're doing in Bain Sound. So one of the easiest things that we can influence from where we are in the system is education to all the boat owners about disposing of their bilge appropriately. And other than that, I think I also had a museum board meeting. That's about it.
Thank you. And I went to the Dementia Village and the fire truck christening. And also the Sewage Commission had a meeting, and the focus was the transportation plan for the conveyance project. So there's going to be lots of public engagement and lots of social media around that. So stay tuned for that. And then yesterday I had the opportunity to go on the farm tour that was sponsored by the Farmers Institute. And I would really encourage you to do that when that opportunity presents itself. It was really interesting. So thank you. Okay, so we'll move on. We have an opportunity to have a question period. If anybody from the public has some questions that they would like to ask, and it's around any of the items that have been on the agenda tonight. So do we have anybody with questions? If you can come up to the podium and click the red button and state your name and address. And thank you. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Waterton and I live on Sheridan Road. I have a question around the traffic study report that was done for the Hector Road area. I stand on the corner of McDonald and Rivet and Guthrie right there about 2 or 3 times a week with my Stop Old Growth logging sign. And because I've been doing that for 3 years, after the first couple of months, I got really tired and bored, so I started counting cars. And it is my sense that perhaps the traffic study may not have taken into account the corner of Lerwick, McDonald and Sheridan, Lerwick, McDonald and Guthrie, nor the traffic at the corner of Anderton and Guthrie. And I'm wondering why not, because I think that the impact that I've seen over 3 years is much higher than what maybe was stated in the report. So I'm a little concerned that maybe there isn't an effective traffic stance, and maybe it's just something I missed. Thank you.
Thank you. And over to staff.
Unfortunately, our director of operations is not here right now, but what we can do is maybe get your contact information before you leave and have her reach out to you.
Okay, and Julie, you have some questions? Thank you.
So my question is, has the town of Comox yet considered what the cost will be to maintain the 2 detention ponds on the Hector Aspen properties that, similar to some of the surrounding ponds in the area, will likely infill with invasive species such as plants and bullfrogs? And how will the removal then impact native plants and animals? And who will be ultimately paying for that burden? Will it be the taxpayers?
Over to staff.
Yeah, thank you. We have general ideas of what the cost of maintaining the pond is. We're not going to have an exact number until the detailed design and construction costs are known. And what happens is the area that's being serviced by the pond, there will be something called a local service area created. So only the people who are discharging into the pond will pay for its maintenance, upkeep, and replacement. As far as invasive species management, it would be part of what's being undertaken in the environmental assessments with that. And we do invasive species management throughout the town on a sort of resource allowable basis. It's something that maybe you would want to talk to our director of parks or our manager of parks around, because I know we've stepped up our invasive species management in the last couple of years and plan to keep doing that as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. And come on up, Mel.
Mel McLaughlin, Comox. I'll resist the urge to back up Peggy. We need a roundabout. I won't even say that. Anyway, I'm here to ask about the golf course people that showed up and the presentation they gave with a survey they obviously did. Now, I need to know this. If they did that survey or did the town do it? And that'll lead to the real question I'm here to ask.
Are you talking about the economic, the downtown
The people that
enhancement
just
survey?
made the presentation tonight on the golf course,
Yeah,
did they do that survey with, you know, and then reply, or show us how this wasn't feasible, that wasn't feasible, da, da, da? Or did the town do that survey?
The town did that survey. We contracted a consultant group and they conducted that that work. Yes.
Okay, so that leads to this question. Before any of that presentation and ask is granted, why won't this be taken to the OCP so the rest of the community can have an input into what happens to this 40-some acre piece of land? And instead of just being dedicated to basically 285 people?
Yeah.
Thank you. OCP, that's the question.
So we have the economic downtown and economic and downtown action plan coming to council next week. That report has a number of recommendations for council consideration across a whole number of areas, including changes potentially to the golf course. Council hasn't made a decision how and when they're going to decide what is going to happen to the golf course yet. So there's the potential that it could go into the OCP. There's potential that council could resolve it this year. We don't know what that's going to be because council hasn't made any decisions on how they're going to decide. They still need to decide on how they're going to decide.
And sorry, just to clarify, the slides where they were saying why those other suggestions wouldn't work, that was their board who decided. The town wasn't involved in that assessment of viability at all.
okay. And are there any further questions? Oh.
Here.
That's right.
There's red button.
Yeah, state your name and.
Russell Blake, Acacia Road, Regional District B, I believe it is. So listening to the High Street presentation, it would seem there's a single access from the west on the Aspen side. And there's no through trail that they want or greenway going through to Anderton. And also there's a concern they have about public accessing their properties. So really what my question is, are they asking for a gated community without a gate? It would appear to be so. That's my question.
Well, more of a comment, I guess, really. Do you have anything to add? CAO? No, not really. It's something to consider. Thank you. Are there any further questions?
Does the public actually have any say in what happens with this development?
There is the opportunity for a public hearing on July 10th. And that would be the opportunity for the public to express their opinions. Okay. Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, I think we can call for the adjournment of the meeting.
Second.
And the meeting is adjourned. And good night to all those people in other parts of the